Since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, my wife has been working from home while I continue to commute to my job. She has a friend who she occasionally spends time with, and he has even joined us on some outings. He's a nice guy, fun to be around, and generally cool. It didn't bother me at all. My wife had mentioned early on that they dated during their freshman and sophomore years in high school. Back in high school, they never had closeness. After they broke up, they reconnected as friends during their senior year. At that time, he had a girlfriend and she started seeing someone else as well. According to her, there was no romantic involvement between them after the breakup. When the COVID pandemic hit, my wife informed me that she would be working from home. I was supportive of this change as it offered convenience and saved on commuting costs. She mentioned that her friend would also be working remotely, and they might occasionally meet up to collaborate and assist each other with their work, given their similar professional fields. However, one day I returned home and noticed that he was there in person. I didn't pay much attention to it initially because my wife had informed me about their work arrangement. They would sit with their computers, appearing to work diligently. This went on for some time. However, a few weeks later, I would arrive home to find them casually enjoying each other's company. They would engage in various activities together, like playing games, having drinks, or sharing a meal. I couldn't help but find it peculiar. It seemed like he was receiving more attention from my wife, and that she was having a better time with him than with me. That fateful day, the one that altered everything, I came home to a sight that left my heart in pieces. They were relaxed on the couch, her head comfortably resting in his lap as they watched TV together. A maelstrom of emotion surged within me, but I managed to keep my cool, waiting patiently until he left our home. The moment he was out of sight, the dam of my restraint broke. I let loose an eruption of anger, my voice reverberating through the house as I confronted her about their shockingly inappropriate behavior. I was seething, my hands trembling, my heart thundering in my chest as I laid out the sheer audacity of her actions, the blatant disrespect of lying so intimately with our friend. My words whipped through our home like a hurricane. I bared my raw feelings, my deep sense of betrayal, as I pointed out how she showered him with more attention than she ever granted me, her husband. I accused her of sharing more joyous moments with him than we had ever experienced together. I didn't shy away from mentioning their past, their history of a casual fling. In my wrath, I turned against the inanimate objects in our surroundings. Furniture was toppled, plates were hurled against the walls, shattering into 1,000 pieces, their destruction underscoring the symphony of my fury. A lamp was caught up in my rampage and launched towards the door, mimicking his hasty exit. She became extremely upset and argued that I had no authority to dictate whom she could spend time with. She was furious at my insinuation that she was cheating on me with him, vehemently denying any wrongdoing. According to her, their interactions were innocent and merely a way to unwind, dismissing any impropriety in resting her head on his lap. Curiously, for the past 2 days, he hasn't been present when I returned home. She claims that she hasn't seen him since our conversation. Recognizing the intensity of my anger, I offered a heartfelt apology, but it seems that she hasn't fully accepted it, as she's been rather quiet and distant around me ever since. Update. Last week, I shared about my wife spending time with an old high school ex at our house since COVID started. Initially, it seemed innocent as they were just helping each other with work. But things started getting more intimate. When I found her lying with her head in his lap, I reached my breaking point. I confronted her and banned him from coming over. She was angry and defensive, but eventually agreed. Many people here also found their behavior suspicious. However, I later learned that he might still visit during the day and leave before I return home. After much consideration, I decided to install hidden cameras around the house. A part of me felt guilty, like I was crossing a line. But the bigger part of me needed to know the truth. I needed concrete proof of what was happening behind my back. So I ended up buying 2 high-quality, inconspicuous cameras that I could easily set up around the house. I chose 2 strategic locations, one in the living room, the central hub of our home, and the other in our bedroom, a place that should have represented intimacy and trust between us. I carefully hid the cameras, ensuring they were not easily detectable while still having a clear view of the room. On the first day the cameras were set up, I found myself nervously watching the live feed from my office. I was gripped by a sense of guilt and unease. It felt like I was intruding on my own life. Yet, there was nothing unusual that day. My wife went about her usual routine. Her movements, her actions were all mundane and ordinary. It was a normal day in our home, a slice of life that I was so accustomed to seeing. Yet it felt so distant and foreign through the lens of the hidden cameras. The second day, however, was different. The ex, her affair partner, came over. At first, they seemed to be working on something. They were in the living room, discussing, laughing even. But then, things started to change. He began to get a little too comfortable, his hand lingering on her arm a bit too long, his touches becoming increasingly intimate. I felt a knot forming in my stomach as I watched the scene unfold. I wanted to look away, to deny what was happening right in front of my eyes, but I couldn't. They moved to the bedroom, and my heart sank. I watched in disbelief as my wife betrayed our vows in our very own bed. It felt like a punch to the gut. The rawness of the betrayal leaving me breathless. The next time I saw my wife, I was ready for confrontation. I looked her in the eye and asked her directly, was she still seeing him? She flatly denied it, trying to maintain her facade of innocence, but I was prepared. Turning on the television, I revealed to her the concrete evidence of her betrayal. The videos I had secretly recorded were displayed on the large screen, exposing every lie, every clandestine meeting, every moment of infidelity. As the truth of her deceit unfolded before her eyes, I saw the mask of innocence she had so carefully crafted slip away. The color drained from her face, replaced by a pallor of guilt and shock. She realized then that I knew everything, and there was nowhere left for her to hide. She started crying, the tears streaming down her face. I felt a pang of pain seeing her like this, but my heart hardened, remembering the images I had seen. I told her to leave the house, my voice calm but firm. She tried to apologize, to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I had seen enough. I had heard enough. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had betrayed me, and there was no going back. Following the confrontation, I cut off communication with my wife. I informed her of my decision to file for divorce, an idea she didn't readily accept. Despite her protests, I stood firm, determined to put an end to the relationship marred by deceit. I initiated the process of seeking competent legal representation, diligently reaching out to potential divorce attorneys. After a period of 6 months, the divorce was finalized. It was a grueling process, but it marked the end of a chapter that had been fraught with lies and betrayal. Despite the difficult circumstances, I managed to maintain my composure throughout the process, focusing solely on the facts and not allowing my emotions to cloud my judgment. One of the final steps I took was to send a copy of the video evidence to her parents. I felt it was necessary for them to see the true nature of the daughter they raised. It was a harsh dose of reality, but it was essential in shedding light on the situation that led to the dissolution of our marriage.